Today's conversation is a special one. We're sitting down with someone whose leadership shows up in many forms: public service, professional life, family, and community. Carolyn Mulroney is the MPP for York Simcoe and holds senior leadership roles in Ontario's government. But today's conversation isn't about a list of titles. It's about women, how they carry responsibility, how they lead, how they balance ambition with care, and how much strength often lives in places that aren't always visible. This episode is about work, life, family, and the reality of holding all of it at once. And we're going to release it on International Women's Day because this perspective deserves space. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Myles. Great to be here.
When people hear your title, they often imagine authority and strength, but how do you define strength in this season of your life?
I think strength for me really is about resilience. As I've gotten older, I realize that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so to be strong means, I want to be strong as I go this decade, next decade, and beyond that. So being strong is about taking care of yourself, being resilient, being smart. But then there's also just the physical thing, which apparently I was a runner and now I've got to do weight training. So it's a combination of the two. But really, it's about resilience.
Yeah. Has your kind of perspective on that and perspective on success changed as you've grown and evolved? Like when I hear that kind of perspective or mentality of it's a marathon, not a sprint, did you always have that, or has that evolved over time?
I thought it was a sprint.
Yeah.
You know, when you're 16, 17, thinking about what your next step's going to be, and then when you enter the workforce and you try to figure out how you're going to climb that ladder, you see everybody working so much. You just work all the time trying to get there. And then you realize either you get there or something happens and it causes you to step back and reassess. And I will say that when I had my children, that was, another moment to step back and reassess. I recently lost my father. That also led me to step back and reassess. And so, I think it's not something to do with women. I think it's everybody.
Yeah, I think of myself personally, like for between 20 and 30, I was just felt like I was sprinting. Like I needed to arrive at a certain point for, I don't know, external validation or whatever. And then when I turned 30, I felt like a shift of let's think of long-term, right? I got engaged to my long-term girlfriend. We went and got married, right? Then I just had my first kid last December. Another shift of that too.
Exactly.
You want to play long-term games. Life is long.
And I really enjoy working. And my father worked until the day he passed. My father-in-law worked until the day he passed. If you like what you do, and I really like being engaged. I like working. I like being engaged. But to do that as you get older, you can't do everything. And you have got to build in that resilience, mental and physical, in order to do that. And when I was 22, I went to work at a bank. And the hours were, it was 100 hours a week. But I also saw all the partners at the firm doing the same thing. So I think that you just realize that it's not that you got to slow it down. You just have to pace yourself and make sure that you have the energy stores to do what really matters to you.
Yeah. But another thing, kind of thinking of balancing it all and sustainability, right? Then becoming a mother and motherhood and everything that comes with building a family. So when, you entered that chapter of your life, how was that change, affect, adjustment?
Well, we struggled to have kids. So I already had to take a step off my career path to be able to dedicate my life to it, basically. And so, when they came, it was just like the greatest thing that had happened. And I see your hat, so I know you understand. So I had already made that decision that I was actually going to actively have to take steps that others didn't necessarily have to have kids. And so that led to a pause. But then after I had my children, I wanted to get back into the workforce. And so I was doing that with 4 little kids. I had 4 children under 3 years because I had my first one, 15 months later, twins, and then 18 months after that, another one. So it was hectic. It was really, really hectic. And I was just trying to keep them alive. Sometimes there was this crazy show called John and Kate +8.
Yeah.
And they would dress all their kids in the same color so they wouldn't lose them. I did the same thing. So it was nuts, but I wanted to also get back to work. And one of the jobs that I did required me to go back to school. So, and pass some exams. And so I'd have to get up at like 4:00 in the morning, study from 4 to 6, wake them up, get them ready to school, drop them off, go to work, come back, and, do all of that. And I will say that I think at that stage, that was probably the most hectic, but it was also exciting, and coming home to all of that is wonderful. It's hard, but I loved it.
How old is the youngest kid now?
Now she's 18.
Wow.
The oldest is 21. So they're all in university. So I'm an empty nester now, and I can't believe it happened. It just happened like that. And they used to be by my side every weekend in the riding, doing events. Between the four of them, I always had one. And it made the work even better, because as you know, we have so many wonderful people in this area, and they got to know my children got to know them. And we'd go back to the same events over and over. And it was like a family. So now they're gone and they're off pursuing their dreams. But it was wonderful to be able to share it with them while they were here.
Do you think that women have this unique ability to kind of hold complex things all at the same time and be able to compartmentalize? Like, I'm just thinking of like the chaos of raising children at that time, and then going back to school, and then getting into the career, and like it's like this balancing act of all these different aspects of it.
Well, I think that we certainly have to do it. Maybe in a proportionate basis, we do more than dads, but my husband does a lot. I'm sure you do a lot.
I do a lot, but it's different.
Yeah, I think maybe it's different because there's the caregiving there's the involvement with the broader family also. Yeah. I mean, in my case, when our kids were really young, I was going back to work, but my husband was more far along in his career because he hadn't taken that time off. So I more of the organizing and the feeding and the clothing all fell to me, but I didn't mind doing that. He does all sorts of stuff I don't want to do. Okay. So we have a good arrangement, but I do think that probably in most cases, a lot of it falls mostly to the woman.
Yeah. I mean, like I got a mom, I got two older sisters, right? And everything, even like how I look at them changed even when I had my kid, and then watching my wife too. It's just like.
But I look at your generation, I think that you guys grew up with a different appreciation for what moms have done and pitch in more. I hope that my sons will pitch in. I mean, just my husband did, and I hope that my sons will share as well, because I would not be where I am today if it weren't for my husband, because politics is a completely different kind of career, and it's very unpredictable in terms of your schedule. And when your kids are playing hockey, the older they get, the later they play. So it's harder to manage, and he stepped up.
Yeah. I'm trying to do my best. I'm trying to step up, be on duty every bath night, I love it though. I love it.
You won't get it back.
Yeah. So that's another thing I'm trying to like really remind myself.
I think what's really important is try to be present in those moments, because you won't get them back. And take a lot of videos so that you can, when they're gone, you can go back and listen to their little voices.
There's no shortage of videos. Every single day is documented. Leading into kind of leadership, and uniquely women in leadership too, because I think to be a good leader, you have to have like high emotional intelligence, high EQ, right? To be able to read people, adapt, kind of understand. Talk about how you feel about leadership and kind of those attributes in that role.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the most successful leaders that we have high EQ, whether they're men or women. Like Doug Ford has really high EQ. He knows what people are thinking, how they feel, and he can sense it before a poll tells him. Yep. My father also had really good EQ. So I think that's just a good quality. And that's just in politics. So in business and media, I'm sure you'd say the same. I think that as each person brings their own experiences. And, we just talked about some of the experiences I've had as a mother, and I bring all of that to my job. And so the things that I care about, the issues that people bring forward that really resonate with me, obviously, you want to fight for those and things resonate with people in different ways. So I think that anything to do with, childcare, like a lot of the burden of taking care of parents as they get older falls on their daughters. And so I have a lot of friends, we talk about that issue. So those kinds of issues, your personal experience, you bring that to bear on what you do. And if you're in a leadership role, then you have the opportunity to really push those things forward. So, but I think that's the same for everybody. There's some agendas that everybody has their own kind of agenda, and agenda sounds like a bad word, but just the things that really matter to them.
Yeah. And it's like being able to, you have like the life experiences too, and then be able to bring that into kind of the career side, leadership side of it. I was talking to someone this week and they're like, I'm in the sandwich era of my life, right? It's got the kids on the one side of it and then aging parents on the other side. And you're kind of in between managing both.
That is a really tough, I think I have to say now that I'm getting into that is the hardest thing, because especially, the pressures of dealing with an aging parents as your kids are leaving, for instance. And then if you have to put grief into that, it's just a lot while you're working. So it's a tough time, but
balancing it all.
Yeah, that's it.
And being a good leader, how important do you think is, trust and relationship building as you become a good leader or execute being a good leader?
I think that you've got to build trust along the road of your life. You really do. And that means doing what you say, showing up for people when they expect you to, showing respect in ways that people may not have expected it. And then if you do that, people will come along with you. Leadership is about executing on a vision, being able to articulate a vision, being able to execute on it, and believing in yourself that you have it. It involves a little bit of ego to a certain extent, because leadership's not easy, and people will tell you that your vision is wrong and you're on the wrong path and you don't know what you're doing. So you really have to believe in yourself, but you have to have that vision. And so you've got to communicate that, and you got to bring people along. And it's a lot easier if you have their trust already.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just the words that you say. So you do that by building those relationships, but also by building a track record that shows that you can do all those things.
Yeah, it's you building that trust. So you're not spending time convincing people, they're believing in it, right? Like they believe, one, in the vision that is set out, but as well too the belief that it can actually get achieved. And that's done with that track record, as you mentioned. Right. And as well too, you always see like good leaders, right? Again, I go back to this high EQ, like the ability to listen and consume and bring in lots of information from lots of different voices, right? And then kind of drive clarity within it and package it and then use that to go and set out a vision.
The other thing I'll add is the importance of authenticity. And it's a word that everybody uses a lot today because social media, you're more successful when you're authentic. But I think that when I grew up in a world where people were watching us. We had to be, when I was a kid, had to be well behaved. You want to be polite all the time. So there is a certain reserve that I kind of built up. And opening yourself up so people see your authentic self is not an easy thing to do if you've grown up that way, or if you just believe that you want to keep some things private. But you do have to be able to show people who you really are so that they can trust you and believe in you. And it's actually it's a lot easier when you just get to be yourself. You're not pretending to be more this than that.
I know, like sometimes women, like especially when they're building a family too and go back to work and build their careers, that they can sometimes feel some guilt, right? Did you feel any of that? How did you internally deal with it? I think it would be helpful for, someone that's maybe in that position or going to be in that position to hear someone's experience through it.
I mean, I spent so much time not talking about this issue, but when I was thinking about, the decision about having kids and taking some time off from my career, the New York Times, it was in the late 90s, had written an article called Opting Out. And it was about how there was this mass of young women who'd been university and college educated who were opting out of careers to focus on their kids. Then a few years later, Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook, she was the CEO of Facebook, she thinks might still be involved in Meta. She wrote a book called Leaning In. Mm-hmm. And she said, if you opt out, then you're never going to be able to lean back, and you got to still find a way to lean in. And I think those are the kinds of, like, it's almost like you said, the sandwich, it kind of bookmarks kind of where we are. And I think people are kind of in between.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of girlfriends who opted out and are staying with their kids, and they've loved it. And if you're the kind of person, if you've got the kind of family, you guys, you and your partner can support that, then that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And just go and be that. I always knew that I wanted to do both. So for me, I didn't have guilt in the same way as others may have if they had a different ambition for their lives than I had for my own. So I always wanted to work. And so, I mean, one of my kids once tried to guilt me into something, and I throw it right. He's 20, and I tell him about it all the time. But because I knew I'd be a better mother and a better partner if I was happy with myself. You don't build up any resentment towards anybody. So I didn't feel that kind of guilt. I did feel guilt when work-wise, and it's easier to looking back on it now, but when I have missed things that I regretted, when maybe I had more control and I didn't exercise it because I chose wrong.
Yeah. And
I've missed out a few things that I regret missing, and it's not guilt, it's a personal regret for me. But I never really felt that kind of guilt. I mean, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Like the chaos, I've forgotten kids at school, just like a lot of it happens, those kinds of things. But I feel badly, but I didn't feel guilty, and it didn't cause me to think that I was making the wrong choice in my life for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you should follow your kind of intuition of like where you actually want to go for yourself too, right? And move forward with that. And, I don't think you should feel guilt if you are taking ownership of the direction that you want to take your life. And the truth is you would show up better in all areas of your life if you follow your intuition, right?
Exactly. I mean, my daughters are 18 and 19 and 20. And I say this to them, and I say it to all young women that I talk to if they come to me for advice, is you really have to just take a hard look at who you are and chart your own path, and don't have somebody else. I say to my daughters, just because I did this doesn't mean that this is who you are. I want you to think about it. But I do want them to think about careers that they'll be passionate about, because when you do have kids and when things get really hard, it could be easier to just pull yourself out of off that career path. It'll be easier to go back if you do that, if you love what you did.
Yeah.
Like, I have a daughter who loves music and entertainment. She doesn't want to be a singer. And I don't want her to lose that, because she's on the path. She's got to figure out how to support herself. Yeah. So I really want her to think about that. And I think that she's 20. This is the time for her to be thinking about it, going out and meeting people who are in industries that are of interest to her. So, I know people say following your passion is not great advice because that doesn't necessarily pay the bills. But if you can find an intersection of things something you really love to do, that you're good at, and pays you enough money to live, then that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, I'm going to say it wrong, but the ikiga.
Oh, yes. I said
it's like the cross section of all those things.
Yeah, that Venn diagram.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And especially at 20 years old, you got to go out and explore that. There's plenty of time you could fail 6 times and then figure it out.
But you got to try things and try to stay on the path of finding something that you enjoy.
Where do you feel the pressure the most in life and career? And because then I think facing the pressures and feeling it too is what builds up the resilience that you need to continue on when things get hard. So talk to me about kind of pressure and then resilience built off of that.
I would say now that I'm over 50, I don't feel pressure the way I used to. And I think that I felt pressure, and it had to do with the definition of success that other people held. And so defining my own, having my own definition of success, knowing what I can expect from myself. I know when I'm letting myself down. I don't need to talk about it with everybody, but I know when I could do better. So I feel pressure around that. But really, I do feel a much clearer sense of who I know who I am now. And I think that's one of the good things about getting older, as just you kind of have this clarity around who you are, and it helps you take a load off.
When do you think you started to like really lean into that element? I think that would be helpful too, because it's so true. Like to really know yourself, right, and have clarity in that, like it's so helpful. But the truth is, you only get there through the experience of it, right?
Yeah.
But like, was it, at 25, at 35, at 45? Like, what is the...
I will say, and I wish it had happened sooner because I think you're better off if it does. I think it's when my kids started leaving. So that was about 4 years ago. And because then you got to look at yourself and figure out who you are without them every single day. Yeah. But I do think that there's an opportunity to find clarity sooner. Like when you've kind of figured out, oh, this is how I like to spend my time. And it doesn't matter if everybody says that's not a worthwhile thing. And just leaning into who you are in that way. Like, I'm a nerd. I like to work. I like to read. I don't need to go. And, when you're in your 20s, you know what I'll say? I loved being 40 because when I was 25 years old, my emotional age was 40. Mm. And so realizing my husband's 22. He's at 50 something. He still wants to be 22. So I think when you kind of learn what your own emotional age is and when you get there, when they correspond, I think that brought me some peace. Yeah. But I will say that having my children leave it's a new chapter in life. And that also you got to figure out how to be comfortable with yourself. Yeah.
Let's talk about kind of long-term thinking. You seem like a very long-term thinker, right? And good things take time. So that's a good combination to have. When you make decisions, how often are you thinking years ahead rather than months? I guess you have to have the balance of both, right? But how do you think about that?
Well, say in politics, you got to do it all the time. So my job at Treasury Board is to, through a board I chair, authorize spending for the entire province of Ontario. $220 billion every year comes to us for approval. And when we think about it, we think about the problem we're trying to solve. But then you also have to think about the other byproducts, the repercussions, how it's going to be in the short term and the long term. And I think that's just good decision making in business and politics in your own life. Now, sometimes you make emotional decisions in your own life, and but I think that at least when it comes to parenting and giving them the kind of guidance, I think long-term is key. And I think I would get that from my father. My father was always reflective on decisions that we were making and saying, you'll realize that when you get to be 50, it doesn't matter that you haven't figured things out. My dad he left office when he was 54. He was prime minister from age 45 to 54. And then he left office and he had kids in school and he'd been a lawyer and a business person, then prime minister, but he had to start all over. And I think that lesson that he shared with me often, I think really resonated because you think you're getting to your 50s and that, freedom 55, but that freedom 55 doesn't mean it's kind of the end. It's like a new jumping off point for the next few decades of your life. So I think he's the one that really got me to start thinking long term.
It's such a beautiful perspective to have, right? Because a lot of people, they think they get on a track and it's just you got to stay on that track. But really the best is you climb a mountain, but then you can just start from a brand new mountain and climb that one.
And that's something that's important for women to know, I think. And that happens mostly, I think it's a bigger issue for women than for men because of the time you take off if you do have children. The non-linear career is not a failure. And I think that I did struggle with that a little bit when I was going this way and going that way because my dad had gone to law school and started when he was 21 or something at the law firm and made partner at that law firm. And when he died, he was still a partner at that exact same law firm. Yeah. And, so I grew up raised by a generation that believed you kind of became a company person, right? Yeah. And there's so much value in that. I was just touring a company and someone has been there 30 years. I mean, it's wonderful, but doesn't always work out that way. And if it doesn't work out that way, that doesn't mean failure. You actually learn so much when you fail or when you lose. It just requires more creativity, more of an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think women are quite entrepreneurial. And able to innovate in their own lives. And so I've actually, when I realized that that's the path I was on and I couldn't look at it as a negative, I think it was great.
Yeah, I think a good framework is to think of like different seasons in your life, right? So they can come and go and change, right? And you can go on these new chapters. It doesn't have to be this straight line.
I agree.
What gives you hope about the next generation of women?
They're so confident. I love their confidence. Maybe I'm exposed to more of them because of social media. I have 2 daughters, and so I have loved getting to know their friends. I think it's really important to get to know your children's friends, especially as they get older.
Yeah.
And so I consider them to be kind of part of my group as well. I just love their confidence. I love how they stand up for one another, how they stand up for each other. I love that they, in general, I know it's not the case for everyone, but I will say that I have found with the young women that I know and I've met over the last few years that I find them to be incredibly confident and ambitious. And they say what they think.
Yeah.
They really say what they think. And so they're brave. So I've got a lot of confidence with that. I'm excited about that. I have a lot of young women who work for me who are incredibly intelligent, hardworking, but they also know themselves.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because there's more information like this available. I really think it's important for women, especially in my position, as you get to this part of your career, not to sugarcoat things, tell them everything's possible, but just to tell the story of your own life so that maybe somebody will see something, a nugget in there that will resonate with them. But maybe because there's more of that out there now, that younger women are so much more, they're so impressive.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to end it. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Myles. This was fun.
This has been another episode of Conversations with Neighbours. This can be released on International Women's Day. So happy International Women's Day to all the amazing women in my life. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.